This is the Weather Lounge here at WeatherWorks.
Hi there, everyone, and thank you very much for joining us again here in the Weather Lounge. If you're new to our podcast, a very special welcome from all of us. I'm your host, meteorologist Brad Miller, and our podcast comes to you from our WeatherWorks headquarters located in Hackettstown, New Jersey, made possible by Crew Tracker software. And joining me here in the Weather Lounge, as always, is my sporty, ninja-like co-host, meteorologist Mike Mahalik. Hello there, Mike.
Hey Brad, I don't know what you're going with this, but I mean I know where you're going with this, but these ninja-like stuff, I
Yeah,
am not even close
come on.
uh, to that level to be called a ninja. But I do appreciate you giving me that little bit of morale booster, I should call it.
Yeah, well, you're quick and nimble on your feet, right, Mike?
yeah, yeah, maybe. Maybe I used to be a few years ago, but maybe
Hmm.
not as well this year. But anyway, the introduction is a bit fitting though because we have a special guest today that may fit the descriptions a lot better than me. That's for sure. And he's not just a meteorologist, but he's also an American Ninja Warrior.
Yeah, this is a first here on the Weather Lounge. His name is Joe Moravsky. For those of you who have watched American Ninja Warrior on NBC, will know him quite well. He's competed on the show 10 times since 2013, and he's been titled The Last Ninja Standing in 2014 and 2017, as well as competed 3 times with Team USA in the Team Ninja Warrior competition. Joe is a manager at Stamford Ninja Academy in Connecticut, and also he's working as a freelance television meteorologist on News 12 in Connecticut. So, again, a lot to talk about here in this week's podcast. So, before we get into that, though, let's take a short break. And when we come back, we'll bring on Joe Moravsky, American Ninja Warrior. Stay with us.
And welcome back, everyone. As mentioned before the break, our guest today is the American Ninja Warrior himself, Joe Moravsky, aka the Weatherman. And Joe, thank you so much for visiting the Weather Lounge podcast.
Thank you guys for having me so much. Yeah, it's always funny when I do these sorts of things with other fellow meteorologists because for me to be called the weatherman, I feel bad because it's like you think of Al Roker, he's the weatherman, right? And
Yeah.
now you think of
Right.
Joe Moravsky, and he's the weatherman. I'm like, come on, I don't have to be the only weatherman here. But it's a cool one. It's a cool one for Ninja because it kind of sets you apart. That's your nickname is your nickname. That's the big that kind of
Right.
makes you who you are. And years ago, I ended up breaking an obstacle on the course, and
Oh.
that kind of started the whole thing off. They were like, "The weatherman! Did you see that weatherman that broke the course back in 20?" So that's where it all started. But yeah, thanks for having me on the show. This is exciting.
Right. I mean, hey, I'd rather have that nickname than some others that maybe people have had in the
Could be
past.
worse.
But have any nicknames there, Brad?
Not that I can share. Here. you know, we don't want to keep this as
Okay, family
PG
friendly.
as
Here
we
we
can.
go. Um, so this is going to be Joe, your 10th appearance here on American Ninja Warrior. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. 10 seasons. And the one time I didn't really get to compete in Vegas was the one year that we had COVID. So, um, 10 for 10 moving on to Vegas, but as we know, tough one this year, but we can get to that a little bit later.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I
So,
guess
I was gonna say, Mike. I was gonna say
go ahead.
we'll get over to the Ninja Warrior questions here in a little bit. But let's talk about the weather aspect first. Of course, you're a meteorologist. What got you going in the weather, and then of course down the road, what led you into American Ninja Warrior?
Well, I got to ask you guys almost after I answer this, but I was in third grade. I still remember I was in third grade, and I told my
Sounds very
teacher.
familiar.
Yeah, right. I told my teacher, I think we were doing some sort of like career based questions, like what would you want to be when you get older? And I couldn't make up my mind. I knew I wanted to be a professional athlete. Like my father was an amazing baseball player, and I knew that I had a shot. I knew there was athleticism in my family. Um, I just didn't know how far it would take me, and I wanted to be a weatherman. It was so strange. Like, what third grader says, and that's why I want to, take it over to you guys here. But what kind of third grader wants to be a weatherman? But I knew what I wanted to do. I'm very blessed because a lot of people, like my wife, for example, she didn't know what she wanted to do for the longest time. And some people, like my sister, she still doesn't even know what she wants to do. So it's just not something that happens. I feel like often, um, and that's kind of how I got into it. I think the coolest part of the whole story is I think I had just graduated high school, and I was at my graduation party, and we had this midsummer thunderstorm roll through, and I'm talking to one of my aunts on the front deck of my parents' house, talking about meteorology, my future. I don't know if I want to do it, just because I just was unsure. It's a life change. It's the next chapter of my life, and I just had all these doubts. And all of a sudden, before the rain even starts, you can hear like thunder in the distance. Guys, I swear to you. Okay, you ready for this? I wish I had a ring camera on the front of the house.
Yeah.
Oh no, lightning.
Ball lightning
Oh,
Really?
comes
you gotta
down
see
the
that.
street in front of the house and blows up in front of the house. It happened so fast, but I saw a ball of lightning, or it had to have been lightning. I don't know what else it could have been. And it just explodes and gives that thunderous roar. And I was like, okay. I'm a believer in God. I was like, you know what, God? I got the hint. Thank you. So went into meteorology, and it's so incredibly funny how everything has come to fruition. Here I am, Joe Moravsky, the weatherman. So
Right.
everything happens for a
That's
reason, right?
that's crazy that you actually saw ball lightning
I had to look it up. I
right
didn't
in
know what it
front of
was.
you.
I didn't know what it was, I think, at the time, because it was such a rare it still is, such a rare
Yeah,
weather
I mean,
phenomenon.
it's almost like one of those things where, some scientists aren't even sure if it's a thing, and it's still kind of questioned. But I gotta say, years ago, a couple of years ago, I saw what I thought might have been ball lightning also. But it wasn't as close as what you're describing. This was far off in the distance, maybe about 5 miles or so, where there's a mountain near my house, and I swear to you that it was a thunderstorm around, and light showed up on top of the mountain, and I'm looking at it, I'm going like, well, it's not an airplane, it's still sitting there. And it just kind of sat there for a while, and then eventually just kind of, you know, went away.
So
And I was
cool.
like,
So
I
cool.
think that was it. um, but I wasn't quite sure, and then I was like questioning whether or not I was just seeing
Of
things and going
course.
crazy in my head, of course. But anyway, it's interesting.
Well, how old were
Uh,
you? How old were you when this happened?
oh, you're gonna date me now? No, it's this might have been a few years ago, so I might have been like 38,
Okay,
39,
okay.
something
I was
like
gonna
that.
say this happened to me when I was like 18 years old, and back then
Right.
I trusted my mind a little more than I do now. 3 kids in. If I saw that now, I probably would have been in your boat and been like, maybe I made that up. Maybe I wanted to see that.
Right, and that's the thing where I was at too, because I was like, okay, I'm an experienced meteorologist now. I've been doing this for years and years and years, and I'm thinking, like, did I actually just see that? Like, is that really a thing? So it was definitely an interesting experience.
Yeah, I
Um,
think everyone has a story like that. Even when you were younger, or even as you got older too. There's always some kind of weather event, even a storm, of course. But there's sometimes like the ball lightning. I mean, that's incredible. I mean, that's
Yeah,
just like
it always seems to be with almost every meteorologist that I talk
yeah,
to. There's always something that triggers their interest and their career path going forward. Like
right.
for me, it was a lot of the blizzards that we experienced here in
Oh
the
yeah,
Northeast that really got me going. I know one event really confused me because at the time I didn't understand how freezing rain and sleet could happen, and
yeah,
because it was snowing like crazy, and then it started changing to sleet, and then it was freezing rain, and it was 19 degrees, and I'm going, how is this even possible?
yeah,
you know, and at the time I just didn't know because I was too young. And of course, when my snow turned to rain, it was very disappointing when you
Yeah,
were,
devastating.
maybe
it
9 or 10
was. It
years
was
old.
like, oh my
Uh,
gosh.
But yeah, it seems like everybody does have, whether it's a hurricane, whether it's a snowstorm, whatever might have got them interested
I
into
mean, and
that.
you grew up in Connecticut, right, Joe? You're talking
Born
about
and
all
raised.
these.
Yeah,
Yeah.
born and
So I
raised.
mean, I was born and raised in Jersey. Mike's born and raised in Pennsylvania. So I think that northeast kind of I-95 corridor. I think there's a lot of meteorologists because of a lot of the
Yeah.
weather events they witnessed when they were growing up.
It's definitely, not it's never it's always an exciting time living up here. We literally experience all the weather um, known to man pretty much.
So I'm not sure if you mentioned where you went to school for meteorology, but I didn't know if you want to kind of take us down that road. And then how does meteorology turn into Ninja Warrior? Because that's quite a shift. It's not something related, it's quite interesting.
So kind of what makes my story so unique, I think. But so I born and raised in Connecticut, definitely a family oriented man. I didn't want to move too far away from the family. I don't know. I know a lot of people that um, couldn't wait to get out of Connecticut. College comes around and um, they're like, I'm out of here. But for me, I just wanted to stay local. So I looked into UConn, but I realized UConn didn't have any big meteorology program, and WestCon did. And I was like, oh, well, WestCon's like 35 minutes from my house. Like, that sounds fine. So went over there. Who was it? Dr. Mel put that program together back in the day, and uh, program's been just growing and growing every year. So I got my degree in broadcast meteorology from WestCon. Uh, I think most of us almost minored in mathematics at that point, but I minored in math. Um, and I think from there, I was looking for a job, and what ended up happening was I met my wife in college, and she was working in a gymnastics gym, and so I was like, you know what, I'm always, I've always been athletic. I grew up playing basketball, baseball, soccer, um, high school varsity sports, and in college, I tried out for the baseball team, and I was on the bubble to make it, but we had a game on Easter. And once again, that family oriented self of mine, I just was like, I want to go to like, I didn't know we had games on Easter. So I just wasn't ready. I wasn't prepared mentally to let go of that. And so I told the coach, I was like, listen, I'm going to make the tough choice and I'm going to go with the family. And he was like, well, you know what that's going to mean then. And I was like, yeah, I get it. So everything happens for a reason, as I firmly believe, and walked away from baseball, stepped into the gymnastics world a little bit, where my girlfriend, now wife, was, and my ninja career pretty much started with the gymnastics, because she ended up getting a different job at a gym locally, here in Connecticut, in Newtown. It's called Vasi's Gymnastics, where I ended up working for 9 years. Vasi was I mean, he's still an amazing athlete, and he's in his 40s already, but he could do things I couldn't even believe still. Um, he taught me pretty much everything I knew about flipping and all this good stuff. But one of his students was on American Ninja Warrior, and
Oh.
yes, and so at Vasi's birthday party, back when he was turning 35 or whatever it was, 34. Matt, the guy that was there, that was on the show, Matt was there. His name's Matt Mings. He made it to Vegas, but he just barely got through. Like, he was an amazing athlete, of course, but back season 4, season 5, the courses were a lot easier. So as long as you were a good athlete, you didn't really need good cliffhanger strength or rock climbing strength or technical prowess, because there wasn't any need for it yet. So him being as athletic as he was, he made it through to Vegas and then failing on stage 1. But I talked to him for like a good hour that night, and I was like, "Yeah, this is what I'm going to do." And sure enough, graduated college, and it was a semester late, so I finished in December. And in March, I found out they were going to be filming Ninja Warrior, and I was like, "You know what? We're going to take a break from applying to all these news stations. I'm going to train for the show." And here I am today.
Oh, great. I mean, yeah, I just, that makes perfect sense, that you had that, initial, exposure to it at the gym, and then just kind of went from there.
Yeah, and I'll tell
Um,
you, gymnastics. My sister was an elite gymnast. She went to University of Georgia, full scholarship, the whole 9 yards. Almost got on the Olympic team. Yeah, she was, and I can just tell what it took to even make it in gymnast. I mean, she was homeschooled for the last like 4 years, both through high school, basically. And I mean, I couldn't even imagine, what those gymnasts are, and as good as they are. And just I've seen my sister compete a long time ago, and I just like I don't know how they could be that good at what they do. And then with the ninja stuff, I mean, just the body, what the body can do is amazing, is what I'm kind of saying here.
Yeah,
But
it
and,
is.
and to see that.
so Brad, your sister was a elite level
Yeah,
gymnastics. So what happened on your
she's
side?
uh well, you know
No,
what,
I'm joking.
no, I did take I'm not as successful as Joe as what I took up as a hobby. But actually, when I got done with college, I went the golf route for a while,
That's right.
and I moved down south actually for golf. And I just became an assistant pro and never a touring pro. But I mean, I'm still a pretty good golfer. I was scratched for a while. I'm not that good now, but as you get older. But yeah, same thing. Family,
Don't
kids
put
came
yourself
around.
down too much. You are
Well,
a
same thing.
pretty excellent golfer, let me
Yeah,
tell you,
I know,
compared
but
to somebody like me who's hacking
yeah,
around
but
trying to break 100 every time.
as good as I am, there's the guys on tour are 10 times better, and it just goes to show how good they are and how well they can perform at their sport. But same thing, family came around, the kids. I got out of golf and went back into weather full time, so that was the whole thing. So, but enough about my lousy
Yeah.
life. But
So I was interested, Joe. I've been into weight training. I've done CrossFit in the past. I've done just endurance and stuff like that. I mean, I'm not in the type of shape I used to be, but I have a lot of experience in that neighborhood. So how does that compare for training for Ninja Warrior and to something like that you would typically see like anybody in the gym weight training or a CrossFit gym or something like
Yeah,
that?
I mean, I kind of started off kind of how what you're doing. Um, I wasn't really doing obstacles. I was just getting stronger, body coordination, calisthenics. And back in the day, season 5, 6, 7, you probably could have got away with that, but now it's so much more intense. Um, you have to be working on, like with my water bottle here, vertical grip, where you're hanging from obstacles like this, where you're building as much swing as you can, trying not to slip down the nunchuck. There's little grabs that you'll be putting your fingers through little slots this big, and like if you miss the slot, you punch the obstacle and you're done. Like there's such a technical side now to these ninja obstacles. But CrossFit and honestly, any sport is going to help you in ninja. I like to cross train. I was just playing basketball on Friday. Um, I was swimming. I was sprinting. I was doing a whole bunch of different things. Um, I love playing baseball. I play golf. I just started actually. Just had lessons on Saturday for the first time because I want to get into it more. I just bought a set of clubs, and my first time out, shot a 120. It was terrible. And
hey,
then my second time out, shot like a 105. And I was like, all
you got to
right, all
start
right.
somewhere. Yeah.
You got to
But
start somewhere.
well, the person I went to see, she's a LPGA tour. I'm coaching a guy uh, at the gym that I'm working at right now. Um, he's a PGA tour golfer, and his daughter is at the gym. So he hooked me up with his friend, and she helped me out. But she said I'm very athletic. That's why I'm able to hit
Well,
so
I was gonna
well.
say you would the hand-eye coordination, the hand-eye coordination, the flexibility, it just all goes hand in hand with golf, and you probably, especially playing baseball and all that, it's
Exactly.
just it's
Yeah, and
very
so
natural, I'm
she
sure.
said she sees the trend, how it kind of helps me get to what I'm doing, but the form was bad. So we started working on like, all right, left shoulder over the right knee, follow through, right knee into the left knee, like make sure we rebound after your shot. Like there was a lot of different things that I didn't know and needed because I want to play more, but I don't want to play more and get worse form. I know it's better to correct it now. But all these different types of sports that I do help me in ninja. The hand-eye coordination helps trying to get into the slots. Although, unfortunately, I've missed quite a few obstacles like that in the recent past. A little small because my one hand is higher than the other just by an inch, literally all just an inch, and you miss, and you're done.
Ugh.
Um,
I think the most impressive things I see on the mirror, you got to have like incredible core strength for that stuff. For anything you do.
you know what's interesting? I never work core
Really?
because I'm always engaging it on every obstacle.
Oh,
So
okay.
That's
you're
true.
right. Core strength is probably the most overlooked muscle group that's being used all the time. All the time. Like I have a six pack. I mean, it's covered up a little bit, but not just with the shirt, if you know what I mean.
Mine's
Um,
in the fridge right now.
yeah,
I'm waiting for my shift to end.
yeah, I hear you. But the abs have been there, and I kind of like joke about it with myself. I'm like, man, I still have a six pack under the little flab that I got going on, and I'm like, wow, Ninja really does uh, constantly work the core because of all the twisting you're doing, all the pulling, and the knees got to come to the chest. It's all you do it all the time.
Well, yeah, and I mean, you have to be exact, where you're placing your hands, like you said, on when you're flying through the air. So you have to have that body control in order to hit that spot just right. So I could see where that's probably, besides grip strength, it might be one of the most important things to have.
Yeah. Well, the whole other side of it is the mental aspect, and I always like to say that that's where meteorology comes in.
Oh, I see.
Aside from the physics and understanding how obstacles move, right? If I take I don't even have anything right now, but like if I take the obstacle that's preloaded and I touch the obstacle, it's going to swing, and I know the period is going to be an X amount of time, and there's all these other things that I'm thinking about when I'm,
Right.
Thermodynamics at its finest for you.
right. Um, but meteorology, aside from the physics, I think what makes me so good on my first try is going live on air, right? You go live on air, you got one try. Like it's not like, all right, let's cut. No, it's not, we're not doing a reporting like a news story. Like this is live on air. And I think even to this day, there's still nothing more scary for me, like if I had to pick something, than like going live cold off commercial or something. Because I never liked that. Like you hear the music and it's just
Yeah.
right on you. Hey, everybody, thanks for tuning in on meteorologist Joe. Like, I don't know why that is so much scarier than, all right, Joe, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. And you're off on a ninja course.
Right.
I don't know. Even though there's millions of people watching Ninja and only tens of thousands watch me on the news, Ninja is easier for me. I don't know what it is.
No, everybody, I know, has their different opinions, I suppose. I mean, I don't know how Brad handled going live on
Well,
air as a
I think
meteorologist
one
like
of the
that.
things that when I first got into the TV side of things, the chief I worked for always told me, you know what? Yeah, you're live, but if something really goes wrong, step out of camera. Just move out of camera. You can still show maps. You can still have your audio. You can still talk. But if things are going really bad, move away. Don't look like a fool on
I like
camera.
that.
And
I like
yeah,
that.
so just roll with the punches as much as you can. But if things are really going bad, just move off camera, and it works sometimes. I mean, a lot of times I've forgotten to load my show in. I'm usually pretty good about that stuff, and I'll usually ready to go, and I'll forget to hit play, and I get to the green screen, and come out of commercial and clicking it, and nothing's happening. So I got to move out. So I hit
Yeah.
play while I'm talking because I'm live. I gotta keep. You can't just have silence; they'll kill you for that. The producer yelling, "Go, yeah,
Oh, yeah. I had something similar happen to me. Once again, I was a freelance, so
yeah."
I wasn't in all the time. So of course, when something goes wrong, I panic because I'm not used to the protocol and all that other stuff. Um, but I had all my shows freeze on the computer, and I know
Oh,
that you're supposed to go in the
I've
back
had that.
room, reset, and all that stuff. But we were a minute from going live, and I'm like, all right, I'm just gonna keep hitting play and hope, and nothing was happening, so I left it. Nothing's happening. And I'm like, at this point, I don't even know if I'm hitting the right one of my shows, if it was A, B, or C, or D, one of the blocks there. And I ended up hitting B when it was supposed to be C long weather. But either way, it's not loading. And then all of a sudden I hear, them in my ear, they're like, all right, Joe, you got to get to your mark, get to your mark. I'm like, my show is not working. So, um, the camera goes to the mark, but I'm not there. And all of a sudden you just see whoop. And I just come flying in, and the anchors are like, "Hey, you're like a ninja over there, Joe, huh?" I was like, "Yep,
Yeah.
had
Yeah,
that
there
one
you
coming,
go.
didn't I?" And sure enough, I'm like, "Yeah, guys, sorry, my show is frozen." Oh, there it goes. Look at that. And sure enough, it worked. I couldn't believe it. But halfway through the show, found out it was the wrong weather, and I ended up having to just off memory give the 7 day, which was kind of a pain. But thankfully, you study it enough when you're putting it together to kind of know the weather story. But that was interesting. I'm sure they liked that, getting to throw the little ninja in there.
Well, the good thing is that the ninja course doesn't disappear
Yeah.
like
Or
your show.
or does it? Maybe one
Oh,
day.
it might.
There's an obstacle actually. There's a show, I should say. It was man, what was it called? It was on Netflix, I think. And I wanted to try out for it, and they called me back, but they said I can't do both. I can't do Ninja and the next Netflix thing, which is dumb, by the way, because it's not. It's Netflix. It should be different. Anyway, it was
I know
called.
because it was a conflict of interest, or
Yeah, yeah. It's on
oh,
the tip of my
jeez,
tongue. Anyway, they had an obstacle where it was a rock
Squid
climbing wall.
Games.
No, it was a rock climbing wall, but it wasn't just traditional rock climbing holds. It was like square cutouts of things, like you're grabbing on something like that. But they were magnetized, and they had a button, so it would remove the magnet from the back, and the hold would fall off the wall. It would disappear,
Oh.
and so you had to move fast because the holds were falling off the wall. It's really cool. I'm blanking on the name, but it doesn't matter. It was a um, really cool idea. So hey, you never know. Disappearing obstacles might happen. I wouldn't be
Ye
surprised. I really wouldn't. We're already into the world of like obstacles that move on command when you hit a button. So I don't see why the progression wouldn't be obstacles that disappear, if you will.
yeah, and it does seem like they are getting harder and harder. From when I first saw the show, it was like the salmon ladder was like the hardest thing to do or something, or maybe the warped wall or something like that. But now there's stuff that's on the show that I'm just thinking to myself, how?
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do you even navigate this thing? Do they give you some practice on the course before?
A lot of people don't know this, but I don't know the course until about the day before. I
Oh,
fly out. I
wow.
like to fly out 2 days before because I like to see the course, or at least try to
All
see
right.
the course. If they build it outside, like in Vegas, I'll get there 3 days before so I can at least, walk down the street and look through the fence and kind of get an idea of what maybe we're going to be looking at. But you never really know until you're there, because once you're there, then you see the obstacles being used, and you're like, oh, it doesn't work how I thought it was going to work. That's how it works.
So, I mean, do they give you time to practice? I mean, do you have like a golf before a tournament? You have a chance to practice the course, but you don't.
Nothing.
Nothing.
Wow,
Yeah, it's a one and done. That's why I said
I never knew
meteorology.
that.
Yeah, that's why
Yeah.
it's being live on air versus your first try on a ninja course. It's kind of similar.
So I guess it would be better then to not go first and watch other
Absolutely.
people and how they are handling things.
Absolutely. Yeah. Um but it's kind of it gets to a point where it's not it's situational. So in Vegas, for example, and for most of the times we're filming, we film overnight most of the time. So if you run first, it's actually kind of nice because it's like 10 o'clock at night and you're not dead tired. But the downside is you don't get to see a lot of people run, if any. Thankfully, I've never run first. I think the earliest I've ever run was seven. Um, and that was a city finals course. There was only top 30 left. So 7 out of 30 wasn't awful. It was, top third. But you don't really get to see a lot of people run. In Vegas, if we're filming overnight and let's say I'm running last, well, great. I get to see everybody run, but I'm running at 5 a.m. and that's awful, especially when you're up all night. So it's, there are pros and cons.
So I guess Las Vegas is the place to do it because of the weather. I mean, not too many weather issues, obviously, though. This past summer, I mean, there's been several floods already, which is very rare. But yeah, has weather ever impacted the show other than rain? I mean, have it like fog or is like
Yeah.
wind,
Yeah. I think we filmed in,
temperature? I guess the heat too, maybe.
yeah, I think one year in Colorado, uh, they had this cold front come through and they had snow at the top of the warped wall. And so they
Oh,
actually built a snowman, and it was sitting up there. I think they took it down for Showtime. They cleaned everything off. But it snowed one time. We had ice on obstacles when I was competing back in season 7,
Wow.
I think. That was tough. That was not fun.
I would say because I mean, with anything, if it's cold outside, your grip is harder. Just like if you have experience playing baseball, if it's cold playing baseball and you don't hit it on the sweet spot, it
Oh
stings
yeah,
your
it
hands
stings.
really bad. You know, I played football and get your hand hit between helmets or something when it's cold. I mean, forget it. So I can't imagine, what it's like to try to use cold obstacles, and it's got to be difficult, correct?
Yeah, I always preferred it cold. I don't know why. I think it's just because the sweat kind of evaporated a little bit easier for
Hmm.
me. Um, and I think a lot of people hated it. Honestly, a lot of people hated the cold, and because of that, and because I was just kind of neutral to it, it made me like it a little more. Because if everyone else hates it, and I'm doing better than everyone else, then that's good. So
Sure, you got an advantage.
exactly. And there's a lot of mind trickery going on, I suppose, to myself. But that's kind of how I work. If everyone's freaking out about one obstacle and I'm kind of like okay about it, well, then I'm doing better than everyone else before I even get on the obstacle. So it's a good way to boost my confidence. I don't know. It's a weird way to do it, maybe, but it works.
But being called the weatherman, I mean, I'm sure there had to be times when people asked you your opinion on what the conditions are going to be, because that happens to any meteorologist. We're expected to know what's happening in California and also
Yeah, but that's
happening
his
in your
advantage. Why would you
backyard.
give away information like that? He's a meteorologist. I'm not telling you what that's going to be like.
I like that. That's funny. It has happened quite a bit, actually. Never from the executives. They have their own in-house meteorologists that they somehow trust more than me. No. But either way, I've two times. One in Philadelphia, we had a system coming through, and I was like, guys, we got 10 minutes, and I'm telling the producers, I'm like, you got 10 minutes. They're like, oh yeah, yeah, we know. I'm like, sure you do. And then, sure enough, I'm walking up to the starting line, and I'm like, there's no way I get my running. I was just looking at radar scope, like, there's not a chance I get this in.
Hmm.
And they're like, hype me up. I'm like, guys, like, I could see the drops, and then sure enough,
Downpour.
and I was like, well, the weatherman, I guess it's fitting. But because of that, it was supposed to rain nonstop for the next 2 days. So they ended up moving the last 12 competitors from that night to the next region, which happened to be in Minnesota. So they flew me out to Minnesota, which was nice. But to be able to be standing on the starting line and then get canceled is really annoying.
All right.
Um,
So
Mm.
and my whole family came out, so it was a big pain. But yeah, it's happened quite a bit.
so the way that they I guess for lack of a better word they weed down to get to Vegas, is it just like the U.S. Open? And I guess we can compare that to golf, where you start with a regional and a sectional, then you get to the finals. I mean,
Yeah. So it starts off as a regional qualifier where the top 100 or so athletes will, try to beat the course essentially, but they'll take top 30 to the city finals, regional finals. And then from the top 30 out of each region, usually it's 4 to 5 regions. It depends on the year. Like post COVID, it's been 4 regions, and they'll take top 15. So that ends up being roughly 60 to, and then they have extra, they have women from each region. So it ends up being like 80 or so ninjas. But, back when I first started, it was more like 100 ninjas in Vegas, 100 of the best of the best. So it's definitely the finals, the Vegas finals. But that's kind of how they break it down.
So Joe, we talked about how it works to get to the finals of Ninja Warrior, but what's some of your most memorable moments? I mean, there's got to be a ton of experience you've had over the years, but I mean, what's up on the top of the list?
Um, I would say the most positive, memorable moment, because there are plenty of memorable moments, was probably when I broke the rumbling dice, season 6, my second season on the show. It was on the back half of a course in the city finals, and it was this big square tube that you had to roll down a track. Obviously, squares don't roll very well, so you had to grab the bottom left and the top right corner, and you would turn it. So now you're top left, bottom right, and then you would switch your hands and do it again. and you would constantly roll this square down a track. And I had found out by watching how the obstacle worked, and this is where I like the physics and everything, right? Start thinking about, well, if the rules are you have to get from the box to the landing platform, why am I even rolling it? Why don't I just slide it? And they were like, well, you can't slide it, but if it slides while it's rolling, that's fine. You can't do anything about that. And I was like, oh, really? I was like, hey, as long as that's the rule, I wasn't going to say anything. So I'm up there and I'm building a lot of swing. And as I go to turn it, I use that swing to slide down the track. And after the fourth roll, right as the fourth roll happens, my swing, so let's say I'm going towards camera here, my swing, instead of going this way, was doing this. I was a little circular because my hands, instead of being like this, my hands were like this. So every time I turned, I was off center slightly. So this circular swing started to happen. And as I go to roll it, it was on a track, but the track was like this. So it would roll on the top of my hand here, and it would roll along the side of a safety wall. It was like a 2-inch high wall that the obstacle would just roll along down the track just for safety, so it wouldn't fall off the track, or so we thought. I ended up rolling the rumbling dice off the track.
Oh,
I
jeez.
fell with this 110-pound metal obstacle till the safety straps caught it. It made it look like it was wedged between the truss, so it was insane looking. You're like, what the heck? And I somehow held on through the whole process. I'm hanging down closer to the water now. The thing's off the track, and I'm like, what am I gonna do? And I look over to the platform and it's within reach. So I start building my swing and I lachey off it and I land. And I was
Right.
freaking out. I'm like throwing my hand at the thing, like, get out of here, yeah. And I'm like freaking out. The crowd's going crazy. And
Yeah, I was gonna say the crowd's probably going nuts.
oh yeah, and it
Yeah.
was my first viral video, and it literally, that's, the world was like, all right, we know who the weatherman is now. This is awesome. And it was the one year where I feel like Ninja really blew up. Like season 6, we had the first amazing. I mean, we've had a ton of amazing athletes, but the first, like, of the elite ninja women, Casey Catanzaro, who's now doing WWE.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. That rings a
it was
bell.
just her and her and I, her and it was our season. It was our season.
We're
Um,
not grammatically
yeah, it's all right.
correct on this, so
I'm not
we're
gonna
okay.
try. It was our season that year. It was just our season. That was my first year. I went last ninja standing too, so I beat everybody in the country. Um, so it was a really good year. Definitely the most memorable moment to date.
Yeah, I mean, especially with breaking the thing and somehow coming out on top. I mean, that had
Still
to
on
be one
YouTube,
of
I
the.
think. You should check it
Uh,
out. It's fun.
yeah, well, we
Yeah,
should definitely look that one
I'm
up.
sure.
That's
I'm
for
sure the
sure.
crowd, like you said, was they love it when things like go wrong on shows. I'm sure, and like things break.
Yeah, right.
Hey, speaking of YouTube though, when we were doing some research, getting to know you better basically before the podcast, I did watch the Weather Channel commercial you did.
Oh yeah.
The parkour one. That's actually pretty fun. I never even saw that before. I mean, I gotta admit, I don't watch the Weather Channel as much as I do now, like as I did 20 years ago. But I was funny.
Yeah, it was cool. When they reached out to me, I didn't even know. I didn't know the first thing. I think I learned so much from that experience. It was fun. 3 days in Georgia, scouting locations to do the parkour, to the very end, being on top of a roof, getting yelled at by security because we apparently weren't allowed to be up there, but nobody. I don't even know. It was a cool experience. It was fun. Got to work with some amazing people, um, and I would love to do it again. I mean, I had this opportunity come up. It was I think it's on YouTube. I think there's a YouTube series called like What If. Have you guys heard about that?
Mm,
I think so. Yeah.
I was pitched to be the host of that show um probably 4 or 5 years ago, before it became anything. They were going to be pitching it to networks, trying to get it to be on air, and they wanted to be me as the host slash meteorologist. And I totally blew it. I'm going to tell you right now, it was all me. I was still very inexperienced. It must have been more like 5 or 6 years ago. And I just asked way too many questions. I think I just turned them off. They were like, "Yeah, he sounds like a good rookie here. I don't know if we want to take this chance." So,
right.
but it's on YouTube now. I've seen a bunch of it, and it looks really cool. I mean, who knows? The future of Joe Moravsky. Is it Ninja Warrior? Is it hosting? Is it still, managing the gym I'm at?
Right. Well,
That's
talk a
a good
little bit about
segue. Yeah.
yeah, talk a little bit about that, Joe. I mean, because obviously you're focusing mostly on Ninja Warrior, but you also have what's called the Ninja Academy in Stamford, Connecticut. So tell us about that a little bit.
Yeah. So I think about 3 years ago, I got the opportunity to work at the gym in Stanford. Um, and it's just an amazing gym. Ninja Warrior has grown so much. When I started, there were no gyms anywhere, and now there are gyms, literally multiple gyms per state, tens, 20s, 30s. There's tons of them. So Stanford kind of came along, and I had an opportunity to kind of grow with the business, kind of make my way up the ladder, and I'm actually we're in the process of making me franchise owner of the entire company. So I'll be able to open new franchises of the Ninja Academies around the country, around the world, hopefully. And it's great. It's something I've always wanted to do. It really has been. It's just a interesting opportunity. Kind of, it fell into my lap, and franchise owner soon to be. But in the meantime, managing the gym in Stanford Ninja Academy. And it's great because to be at the place that I need to work out, it's just a win-win. I'm getting paid to work out and to train people and to do what I love. Uh, and the question really is, how long can I keep it up?
I was gonna say, man, you're like free advertisement for the whole place every week.
Well, I'm 33 years old too, so I'm not getting younger, and that's another reason why I decided I was going to stick with Ninja, stick with being, managing a gym. And
Right.
while I could step away and kind of do what I used to do, I used to just travel the country for special events, and I would work twice in a month, and I'd be able to survive. But that
That's
just
kind of like
isn't
how
feasible.
Mike works at WeatherWorks. About twice a month. That's about it.
What? He's crazy. He doesn't even know what he's talking about. I'm always here every day. Um, he always calls me on the phone and he just said, "Hey, what are you doing anyway?" But usually starts the conversation every day like that. But I am here. Um, but
Yay.
um, but yeah, I mean that's great that while you're young, take advantage of, still being able to do those things. Um, with Ninja Warrior, I think that's great, and you always have a backup plan. You could always be a meteorologist if you ever want to do that again, right?
Yeah.
Sure. I mean, there's a ton of options, and now, especially nowadays, with all the social media or just the internet in general. Like, for example, I don't know why I bought this, but I figured as a meteorologist, it's something we just need to have. But I got a green screen right here.
Oh, there you
Haven't
go.
opened it yet, but
Well,
it's if I wanted to do my own broadcast right here at home. Like it's
you
just
could.
something that.
There's a lot of freelance meteorologists out there now that do
Hmm.
their weather hits and everything right from their garage or wherever they built
Yeah,
their own in-home studio, and they just take control for the 3-4 minutes of weather for weather, and that's it. I
yeah,
mean,
Right.
it's amazing where we've come to, based on just 15-20 years ago with TV.
I know. And with TV kind of declining too a little bit with all the other like live streaming and all this other stuff, it's hard. The even our ratings on the show have dropped. But you see other things like Peacock TV and all these other things that are streaming Ninja. You see the viewership go up. So is it really? Are the ratings really lower? Well, yeah, maybe on TV, but there are other places to watch it. So it's
Yeah,
tough.
people may be watching it on their own time too. I mean, that seems to be, the way things are going, at least from the television side of things. But moving ahead, Joe, I mean, how long do you see yourself doing Ninja Warrior? As long as you can, or do you have a certain goal in mind,
Is
or
there a senior circuit like when you get past like 50 or something?
masters
I think at
level?
40, in a lot of the leagues that we're in, at 40, it's the Masters division, which is
Okay.
terrifying to hear because to be a master
Ooh,
at 40, it just so unnerving. I just don't like it. Um,
well,
but the future of Joe Moravsky on Ninja Warrior, that is like the biggest question. And after this season, that pretty much you know everything that's going on this season. I mean, we had the Vegas finals. I was out there for the Vegas finals this year, and wife caught COVID
No.
or the sideline and
Oh.
disqualified me from the show. It's like, it's crazy, just crazy. And I remember, when that happened, I was like, I think I'm done. I think I'm done. Like
Oh, wow.
I think this is why this happened. I think I'm done. I'm gonna walk away from this sport and I'll just do I don't know. Like I'll keep doing ninja, I think, but not I don't know. And I think I was ready to pack it in. And then I had a few weeks go by and I just realized I can't walk away. Like I'm one of the most consistent, if not the most consistent ninja on the show in
I'd
history.
say so.
And it's like if anyone's got the best shot to do it, it's got to be me. And I know I've wasted a ton of opportunities, but every failure I've had has made me stronger. Everyone, because I learned from my mistakes. I'm not very rarely will I make the same mistake. Very rarely will I make the same mistake twice. And while it has happened, it doesn't happen often. And I don't think it's ever even happened on the show. Like, sure, it's happened in local competitions, but I don't take those competitions the same. I just, they're not the same to me. On the show, the only other time I've ever fallen the same obstacle twice was in the same season in Vegas. They had an obstacle. It was a rock climbing route and it was an inverted wall. So I was climbing on the wall like that. It was hard. And it was my second season on the show. And I fell on it in the regular competition. And then the next night I was selected for Team USA and I competed against other countries. And I was on the same obstacle and I'm not going to get stronger in one day. So unfortunately I fell on it again. But so there's in terms of like making a technical mistake, I don't think I've ever on the show, I've never made the same mistake twice. But to have a strength related issue, I mean, what are you gonna do about that? But that's been the hardest part is do I come back for another season? And I haven't really told anybody yet, but I could tell you guys right now that I will not be retiring. I will
All
be back.
right.
I will be back for another season, at
You
least another
go.
season. Because it's just too hard to walk away at the top. And I know I might
No.
not be at the top, but I'm among the
Right.
top, and I
Sure.
know that, and I just have to keep working. I just got to keep working. It's
Yeah, I was gonna say you'll know as an individual that when you hit that part where I just probably can't do it anymore, or it's like any prospective sport and a superstar. I just can't do it anymore. I just don't feel as though I can win it. But if I'm at that point, you might as well keep trying.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm happy you made that decision because I wouldn't want to see something like, the COVID situation that you were frustrated by, just shut you down. Like, come back, give it another good shot, then leave on your own terms when you feel like it's time to, retire from the sport. So,
All right, well, Joe, any final words of wisdom, quotes, inspiration that you followed, maybe just successful to you up to this point?
Well, anybody that's listening, um, something that kind of got me to where I am today. It's two quotes. One of which I've been told that is not a Winston Churchill quote, but I'm just going to say it is anyway. It was the never, never, never give up. Apparently, that's somebody being a stickler out there. Like messaged me on Twitter. They're like, "Hey, that's actually not his quote. It was misquoted somewhere." I was like, you know what? It's quoted like that everywhere, so everyone misquotes him, I guess. But it's fine. Never, never give up. Never, never, never give up. And something that helped me get to where I am today is train until your idols become your rivals. And I love that. I love that so much because it's so fitting. You're watching people on TV, you're watching them do their professional sport, whether it's basketball, baseball, ninja, whatever it is. They're your idols. They're somebody because it happened to me too. I remember I got the first time in Vegas. I see all these guys that I look up to, and now here I am competing against them. And that's the moment. That's the shift where you're like, "Wow, here I am." So
Kind of
yeah.
like me and
Now,
Mike. Mike's my idol. I want when I grow up, I want to be just like him.
who
oh,
doesn't?
really?
Oh wait, I'm older than you, Mike. Sorry.
Yeah, well, wait, where are we going with this
I
anyway?
don't
This
know.
is this is kind of strange, but no, well, I really like that quote. I mean, yeah, I agree with you. If you were looking up to somebody and now you're eye to eye, I mean, that's got to be, something that's priceless, basically. But I think that wraps it up for the show, Joe. And I really appreciate you coming out and being on the Weather Lounge. I thought this was great.
Yeah,
Really good conversation.
this
Yeah,
was
thank you
great to
guys.
have you on.
Well, thanks again, Joe, for being on the Weather Lounge. Is there any last things, any new events coming up for you that you'd want to tell our audience about?
Um, I mean, we just got through a bunch of events, so nothing really big for for people to come out and watch until probably later in the year or early next year. But if you want to get those updates, you can just go to my Well, you can go to my social media. That's probably the best place to find any updates. Joe Moravsky is the social media handle across the board. You want to find me on TikTok or Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. It's just at Joe Moravsky. Super simple. Same thing with the website, joemoravsky.com. Got to keep it simple for the folks at home.
Perfect.
And then, of course, if you are local and you want to come by the gym, we have adult training. So you too. Yep. You know what that means. Next time you're in Connecticut, Monday through Thursday in the evenings through the fall. It'll be probably 7:30 to 9 o'clock through the fall. So come down or just check us out online, StamfordNinja.com.
I'll keep that in mind next time I visit my
You,
sister-in-law in
you better.
Connecticut. She lives in Avon, so
And then we'll hit
um,
the golf course.
yeah, there you go for sure. So, well, I think that amount about covers it here for the show. If you want to see Joe on TikTok, he'll do all kinds of TikTok trends, right?
Of course.
But thanks everyone for listening. And remember, we'll have a new podcast every 2 weeks here on the Weather Lounge. And also, please rate the podcast. That helps push our show forward. And don't forget to visit us on weatherworksinc.com and also on all our social media channels.